Hey there, greetings. I'm Marina Orms here with your Astro Vibe for Sunday, November 27th. Today, I thought we would take a little bit of a deeper look at the planet Pluto. Many of you have asked me, what is it going to look like next year when Pluto goes into Aquarius? And can I talk about that? And basically, Pluto is a planet that moves very slowly. And so it creates this background theme in our human experience. And it's a background theme of how things feel, what is happening in the collective, but also in our personal lives, and how that can be something there in the background over a period of time, even a couple of decades. So today is a perfect day to talk about this topic because as you know, in this channel, we look at the moon quite a bit. And we're talking here about the astrology of unshakable self-care. The moon helps us understand the mood of the day because the moon changes signs so quickly. And the moon also relates to the part of us that has needs, feelings, that sort of describes and reflects what we're experiencing internally, how we're processing things, and how we can most effectively align with what is happening in terms of how we feel and experience things. So when the moon goes through its different signs, it's giving us opportunities to take action, to process our feelings, to think things through and talk about them and gather information, to connect with a bigger picture of flow and spirit and dreams. So it brings us all the different qualities that each zodiac sign gives us. And as the moon moves through those zodiac signs, it gives us these opportunities to work on each part as we move through each moon cycle. And so when we can be aware of that mood of the day, the vibe, the feeling, what is happening, it gives us this opportunity to make the most of the opportunities that are available by working with them consciously instead of fighting against the current and struggling against what is trying to happen. So today the moon is going from Capricorn into Aquarius, and that's what Pluto will be doing next year. So today we get a little mini vibe of what that feels like. The moon in Capricorn is a very practical feeling. It's about grounding and getting organized and planning and thinking things through and thinking about roots and foundations. And we move from that energy into Aquarius, which is more of a focus on freedom, of breaking out of constructs, of sort of getting out and away from the constraints that make us feel limited. And so while Capricorn gives us that ability to work within structures and systems, to make plans, to do things according to the rules that allow us to move forward, then when we move into the Aquarian energy, we can break free of that, kind of shake it off and get some new ideas, get some new thinking that might come from outside of existing norms and structures and ways of understanding things. So we can kind of pay attention to how that goes on this particular day as we're feeling the moon shifting from Capricorn to Aquarius. That's similar to what's going to be happening next year as Pluto goes from Capricorn into Aquarius. So Pluto is a very different energy and quality from the moon. And like I said, Pluto moves very slowly. It's, of course, very far out there in our solar system. So it is it takes a long time to go around the sun, which means it also takes a very long time to go around the zodiac. And so it can spend, because it has an elliptical orbit, it can spend 15 or 20 years, and it ranges, so somewhere approximately in that zone, in a sign. And again, it creates that feeling of the background theme of what it is we're working on. And you can look back in history and see sort of how the different qualities of the Pluto times that we're in sort of reflect some of the background themes that we're working through in our collective experience. So what's happening is that we've had Pluto in Capricorn since 2008. And so since that time, we have been doing this work of focusing on systems, structures, organizations, planning, foundations, roots. Now, Pluto, the energy of Pluto, the planet Pluto, is the great transformer. So when we're looking at the energy of Pluto and what it's doing, it is asking us to, it's not asking, it's forcing, it forces us to let go of old ways of being and to be reborn into new ways that have to do with the future, with where we're heading, with what we're going toward. And so Pluto is about transformation. Pluto is the modern ruler of the sign of Scorpio. So you may have heard me talk about Scorpio transformation, things moving under the surface, sort of in that hidden way. And Pluto is also about things transforming at deep levels. It has to do with themes of power and truth and who has power and how power is distributed and what we do with our power. It also has to do with a process of coming to terms with our own power, but think about that in terms of things that have happened to you, or ways you've been victimized, or ways that the world has been victimized, and how we can transform that into empowerment. So taking our victim stories and making them into stories of empowerment. And so under the surface, in the background, these themes have been going on, and Pluto brings things into the light. It brings what has been in the shadow or in the darkness or hidden into the light. So things that were there in the corners, behind the scenes, that weren't being talked about openly, but were there and present in our society, come out into the open for us to process and heal and transform as we shift energetically into empowerment and reclaim our power. And so it's that transformational process by which we step into our power, and doing that in a way that is honoring of our individual authenticity and truth. So in doing that, we have to confront themes of power and how power operates in the world. So things that you have felt like had power over you, maybe there's a sense of grappling with that, and grappling with what is your own power in the context of these bigger picture themes of how power operates in the world. So I'm going to give you a collective example and then a personal example. So a collective example of how this works, and it can show up in many different ways. So this is not the only way it shows up, but this is an example of how the energy works. A collective example is having how we have had this shift toward social justice and having a Black president. So in 2008, we elected Obama, and that was representative of change, right? Of transformation. But what happened in that process is that some things that were in the shadows came to light, and having to grapple with and confront some hidden areas of violence, some violence that was kind of under the surface, or sort of there, but we could ignore it, or we could deny it, or we could pretend it wasn't there. And now we're confronted with it. It's in our faces. And rise in hate crimes, a backlash against, a bigger sense of equality in the world. And so that's one example in the collective. And then following Obama, of course, we had a going very much in the other direction in terms of a president who was actually not so covertly supportive of white supremacy and imbalances in power. So that's an example in the collective, and how we grapple with that, how we recognize, okay, what is my responsibility here? Because responsibility is a big keyword of Capricorn. So what is my responsibility? What is my place of power? How can I reclaim my own sense of empowerment and do that according to my own truth and what is true for me in my own authentic way of being? So that's an example in the collective. Now I'm going to give an example of how this might show up for you in your personal life. And it could be a coming to light of something that has been, you haven't had to confront or deal with your whole life. So something that you have to grapple with that could be representing something that happened to you in childhood, something happening to you in the world, right? It could be related to the pandemic. It could be related to what's happening in the world and shifts in politics, but it has to do with your own personal path and your own personal, the ways that you are stepping into your own power and your own empowerment and reclaiming for yourself your ability to live according to your truth, to live authentically, and to live in a way that your passion can be shared and expressed, and to use that passion as a way of taking responsibility for helping to have more empowerment in the world, and confrontations with authority. That's another theme with Pluto in Capricorn. What does it mean to have to confront those in power, and do we want people to be in power? How do we want them to have power, right? Is this working for us? Is this system working, or do we want to look at how to do this differently? And that could show up in your own life in terms of themes about how you relate to authority. Your boss, your dad, the authority figures in the world, and your own authority, and how your own authority is needing to awaken and be shared, and for you to walk in the world in a way that you're standing in your own inner authority. So that's a personal example of how that could show up. So these are the themes that we've been working on since 2008, when Pluto went into Capricorn, and really learning what it means to be responsible and to transform and to move from our victim stories into a story of empowerment. So what's going to happen next year is that Pluto, this great transformer, is going to go into the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius is that break free, freedom, thinking outside the box, getting outside of the constraints of old models, old forms, old ways of being. And so when Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's going to transform the way that we do that. and it brings a connection to the way that things can change. And so the way that we rebel, the way that we think outside the box, the way that we experience freedom, create freedom for ourselves, feel freedom, and tap into freedom, all those things are going to be, we're going to have to look at how we do that and be asked by Pluto, the great transformer, to think about what freedom means to us and how to create our lives and the world in a way that allows for more freedom, that values equality, that is open to new solutions, to new solutions to old problems. So innovative thinking and problem solving and on the ground new ideas. So grassroots things that are more on the community level, more on the local level, which is very Aquarian. And I talked in a recent video about the age of Aquarius, which is not about Pluto going into Aquarius, although Pluto going into Aquarius has some similar themes, but the age of Aquarius is a much bigger transition and a much longer period of time. So that's the big picture. But with Pluto going into Aquarius, so we're going to get next year about 3 months. So in March, Pluto goes into Aquarius, and it will go a little bit into Aquarius, and then it will turn retrograde, and then it will go back into Capricorn. So from, let me see if I have the dates here for you. On March 23rd, Pluto goes into Aquarius, and then on June 10th, after it goes retrograde, Pluto will be heading back into Capricorn. So what's going to happen is that we're going to have this little almost 3 month, I guess it's more like 2.5 month taste of this great transformer in this sign of rebellion, of revolution, of new ways of doing things, of shake up, change, outside the box thinking. Now, that can also bring themes of rebellion and radicalization and kind of just way outside the norm, and having things that break free of expected structures. So a little bit of chaos, a little bit of the unexpected developments that can be both good and bad, depending on, good and bad from whatever perspective you're in. That these unexpected developments can happen in all kinds of different ways. So it just means something unexpected, and it's how we work with that energy of the unexpected, how we work with change, whether we have the solid foundation to weather the storms of chaos. So think about a tree, and when Pluto was in Capricorn, you got the roots of your tree to grow really deep and really kind of strengthen and bolster your tree, whatever that is, whatever that represents. Then when Pluto goes into Aquarius, you've got a tree that's strong and can withstand some of the storms and the unexpected developments and some of the chaos that might ensue. So when we have strong systems and structures in place, when things have been organized, when we've done our Capricorn work, then we're ready for that Aquarian. Okay, let's think outside the box. Let's think about how we can adapt to the storms we're experiencing, how we can do things differently, how we can get ourselves clear about the future and how to manage change as we go forward. Because that's one thing for sure, is that Aquarius will bring change. Now, It's going to go into Aquarius for, like I said, about 2.5 months, and then back into Capricorn, where for the rest of the year, next year, from June through January of 2024, we will be back with Pluto back in Capricorn, because we have some more work to do in that area of bolstering the foundations and planting deep roots and getting our systems and structures shored up and organized and strengthened, so that we are then going to be moving into Pluto in Aquarius in January of 2024 for the next 19 years. So that's where we'll be doing much, much more of this work of change, and what does change look like, and how do we manage change. And the other thing that Aquarius is about technology. So it is about higher level thinking, higher level connections, such as the internet, higher level communication. And so you can see that we've had some issues with growing so fast in terms of our technology and our communications, that our ability to have rules around that, to have ethics around that, to have boundaries in place that can keep us safe in the context of this global internet and expanded technology. So I think that's going to be something that we really grapple with when Pluto is in Aquarius, is what are the ramifications of some of this technology we've created, the monster that we've created, and how are we going to get that to not destroy humanity, and to keep us to be a tool that we can use with our human awareness, our sense of compassion, our need for boundaries, our need to work efficiently and effectively together as a society, and not to have, the social media and the internet just be a place of propaganda and disinformation. And I'm not saying that's all it is, but it is right now there isn't really a mechanism for how that can be something that people come together and say, well, here are the kind of rules we need if we're going to engage in this global connection. Just like you would in any society. Say, if we're going to avoid a complete free-for-all, we need to have some rules that we agree to, and we need to have law and the rule of law, because it's a benefit to society, and thinking about it in that sense. So how we can have appropriate structure that works for most people, and that creates health in our society and in our systems and structures in general. So that is going to be the kind of thing we look at with Pluto in Aquarius. Also, another example I want to give you is the example of Saturn going into Aquarius, which back in 2020, remember back in 2020, we had Saturn in Capricorn, and then just at the end of 2020, Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto all joined together in Capricorn, and that was part of the pandemic and so on. I'm not sure if it was the end of 2019 or 2020. Now I'm second guessing myself. But anyway, we had those three coming together in Capricorn. And then right after that, Saturn went into, and by the way, Saturn has been a really important planet because Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. So the sign that Saturn is in is kind of giving us a little bit more nuance, qualitative energy to the Pluto in Capricorn period. So that's a deeper subject. But anyway, when Saturn went from Capricorn into Aquarius in just at the end of 2020, we had it was throughout 2020 that those three were conjunct, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And then it was the end of 2020 when Saturn and Jupiter formed a conjunction in very, very early Aquarius. And so that was the beginning of a significant shift in energy. And one of the things that happened when Saturn went into Aquarius briefly in 2020, before it went retrograde, or before it retrograded back into Capricorn, is the George Floyd incident and the murder of George Floyd and the protests that ensued from that. The emergence of the Black Lives Matter, not that it didn't exist before, and not that civil rights haven't been around since the beginning of time, but that was a significant moment for the Black Lives Matter movement and for equality, for freedom, for themes of how we are going to get along with each other in this society as human beings, and recognize that we are all equal, whether we like it or not. And so how we see that emerged, that erupted, that during that period when Saturn went into Aquarius. The other thing that happened was, this was in 2020 when the pandemic had just begun, and all of a sudden everyone went from working in the workplace to working remotely. Technology, right? And technology and working, having meetings over Zoom, and starting to have social distancing and other themes that related to that Aquarian energy. So my point is that those are going to be also themes as Pluto goes into Capricorn, into Aquarius from Capricorn. And we're going to see more of these themes about how we work with technology, how we grapple with our social relationships, our local and community relationships, and an opportunity to forge and build ways of working together that can be more productive and effective, and that is the way of the future, and connecting with how we are going to structure going into that future. Those are going to be some themes that we look at, and there are going to be some structures that we are ready to do away with Pluto going into Aquarius. Some structures that will need to change, some ways of being that will change. We're really in an accelerated time of evolution right now. I mean, we already knew that we were in an accelerated time of evolution in the 1900s with the evolution of technology, even during that 100-year period, the invention of the car, the telephone, electricity, you name it. And so now we're in this period where we're still growing so fast, but our human nervous systems haven't caught up yet. So it's going to be learning how to take care of ourselves in the context of what is changing and in the face of the technology that we have created. So those are going to be a lot of the themes that we're dealing with. There's going to be shake up, change, unexpected developments. Again, everybody wants to know what's going to happen. Are we going to be okay? So I would encourage you to just stay grounded, keep doing your self-care work, keep doing the work that is unfolding for you personally in how you show up and live your life, and what is healing to you, what is supportive to you in your process. Because when you are taken care of, you can make a bigger, happier, healthier, more loving difference in the world. And everything from how you talk to your neighbors to, what you do in your work and how you share on a bigger level. So that, and work, whatever work you do, you can put this energy of hope in the future into it. This energy of supporting yourself, supporting the people you care about around you, to bolster each other, to keep each other going, because this is a long haul. There is going to be change, and the point that I was trying to get to is that things are changing so fast that you may not even recognize, like some of the ways that we already have changed our ways of thinking about things. The fact that we have social media, cell phones, smartphones, right, that we didn't have, let alone computers and so on, that things look and feel very different than they did to your parents' generation, their parents' generation, and their parents' generation. So just big changes, and looking for ways to stay grounded, to stay anchored in what's really important. What's important, the relationships you share with people, the people you care about, the kindness that you show in the world, the and the ways that you take care of yourself and each other. And those things are going to be important no matter what. And then from there, building into, not thinking about the world in terms of like, are we going to be okay or not, but thinking of the world as a place where you can make a difference, a place that we are actively shaping and creating right now in the present moment, out of this profound opportunity for change, for new imagining of the future, a new vision for what humanity could do together, and to actively participate in what that looks like, and doing that through living your life in a way that is hopeful and allows you to connect with your personal dreams and visions and what your soul is really wanting, and that is part of the bigger whole of change for the world, and to keep going. So Pluto reminds us that we are transforming, and this is a long haul, and we don't know what the future will bring, but we're actually actively creating that right now in the present. So what are you going to do today, and as we head into the next phase of things? So that was a lot today. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to be, over the course of the last few weeks that we have left in 2022, bringing you more about what to expect in 2023, what this moment in time really means, and how we can work with it. And I've got more ideas for you, so stay tuned. Let me know what you think. I know that was a lot of information to digest today, but you've been asking me about what Pluto and Aquarius is going to mean. So that's really what it takes, is some dedicated time to dive in deep to that very important topic. So I hope that was useful to you. I will be back with more. We've got also next year, Mars in Gemini going into Cancer. Well, Mars continues to march through the signs, but its period in Gemini has been significant, and that continues for a few more months. So we'll look at that. We'll look at Saturn going into Pisces from Aquarius. We'll also look at sort of the bigger picture of what Jupiter is doing, what Neptune is doing, what Uranus is doing, and what we can expect from those players as we go forward in this collective evolution. And there's going to be some more change coming up later in this decade for sure. So stay with me, stay the course here. We need you. You're doing really important and awesome work. And I'm honored to be here with you on the journey, and hopefully providing some support and inspiration as you keep doing what you're doing. Awesome. All right. Thanks for being here. You can learn more about me at astrologyheals.com. I've got mini readings if you want to get some quick insight into what your chart can tell you about your soul's purpose and much more. I've also got in-person sessions. You can work with me more in depth, looking at your chart and your life and how to make the most of it. So check that out, astrologyheals.com. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, because that really helps me, and it is a great way to give back if you appreciate what I'm sharing with you. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.